Have you ever felt invisible, as if your words carried no weight, as if your talent didn't matter because you didn't have the right degree or the important last name? This is the true story of Sophia Miller, a housekeeper who held a powerful secret. In just 35 seconds, her life would change forever in front of a millionaire entrepreneur. By the way, where are you watching this from? Comment with your city. And if you want stories that make you reflect on the true value of people, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, get ready to meet Sophia. The boardroom of Sterling Construction and Associates felt smaller that August morning. It wasn't the 1,200 square feet of travertine marble flooring or the panoramic windows displaying the skyline of the Upper East Side, Manhattan's most exclusive neighborhood. The sense of claustrophobia came from the weight of expectations and the overly expensive perfume Beatrice Sterling had sprayed on before entering. Jonathan Sterling, 51, with impeccably combed graying hair, adjusted his Italian tie for the 4th time in 10 minutes. His hands trembled imperceptibly. To his right, Mark Davis, the commercial director, flipped through the project dossier for the 1,000th time, as if the words would magically rearrange themselves and reveal some overlooked piece of information. "Has Khalil confirmed?" John asked for the 3rd time, his tense voice hidden behind a professional tone. "Confirmed, John. The interpreter will be here at 9 sharp." Mark glanced at his Rolex. 15 minutes to go. Sophia Miller was in the adjacent kitchen, preparing the specialty coffee John had ordered. Beans imported from Ethiopia, ground fresh, filtered with mineral water. At 30, Sophia knew that most people in the penthouse didn't notice her presence until they needed something. She was like the crystal chandeliers, necessary for illumination, invisible when working perfectly. Her long, calloused fingers arranged the porcelain cups. Every movement was precise, economical. There was no room for error in Sophia's life. There never had been. John's phone rang. Sophia heard it perfectly from the kitchen. "Hello? Khalil? Are you almost here?" The pause that followed was too long. John's face went pale. "What do you mean cancelled? Faisal al-Rashid arrives in 20 minutes. This is the biggest contract in the company's history." Mark shot up, his chair screeching against the floor. "What the hell is going on?" "The interpreter was in a car accident on the LIE. He's in the hospital." John pressed his fingers to his temples. $15 million, Mark. 15 million depend on this meeting." The silence that settled in the room was as thick as wet concrete. "There are other Arabic interpreters in New York." Mark was already frantically typing on his phone. "There have to be. And you think we're going to get someone in 20 minutes? John walked to the window. Below, the streets of the Upper East Side looked so orderly, so controllable, so different from the chaos exploding inside his office. Sophia placed the silver tray on the kitchen counter. She knew that tone in John's voice. It was the same one he'd used 3 years ago when the company almost went bankrupt due to fraud by the former accountant. The same tone of a man watching his empire crumble. She could just serve the coffee, go back to the kitchen and continue being invisible. But Sophia Miller wasn't invisible. She never had been. People simply didn't know how to look. "John," Mark hung up the phone, his face red with frustration. "No professional interpreter can get here in time. I've called 5 agencies." The doorbell of the main entrance echoed through the penthouse. The sound seemed like a death sentence. "He's here." John closed his eyes. "The man who can save or destroy this company has just arrived, and we can't even communicate properly with him." Mark walked towards the kitchen door and saw Sophia with the tray in her hands. "Well," he said, with that dismissive smile Sophia knew so well, "why don't we have Sophia translate for us? I'm sure she studied Arabic at Oxford between scrubbing floors and washing dishes." Mark's laugh echoed in the room. John, however, didn't laugh. There was something in the way Sophia held that tray, an oddly straight posture, a different glint in her brown eyes. "You know, Mark," John said, a dangerous intensity in his voice, "I'm going to make a bet with you. If Sophia knows Arabic, you hand in your resignation and she takes over your position. What do you say?" Mark opened his mouth to laugh again, but the sound died in his throat when he saw the expression on Sophia's face. She was smiling. And it wasn't the submissive smile he knew. It was the smile of someone who held a secret that was about to explode like a bomb in that boardroom. The doorbell rang again, insistent, and the lives of everyone at Sterling Construction and Associates were about to change forever. 19 years earlier, in a forgotten corner of New York City called the Bronx, an 11-year-old girl learned the meaning of the word responsibility in the cruelest way possible. The funeral of John Miller Sr. took place on a rainy March afternoon. Sophia sat on the wooden pew of the small chapel, wearing the only black dress she owned. It was actually navy blue, but in the dim light it looked appropriate enough. Beside her, Carmen Miller wept silently, her calloused hands clutching a rosary that had belonged to her grandmother. Sophia didn't cry, not because she didn't want to, but because Daniel, only 9, was clinging to her waist, trembling. Ryan, at 7, was asking questions she didn't know how to answer. Laura, at 5, didn't understand why Daddy was sleeping inside that strange box. And David, the 3-year-old baby, was crying because everyone around him was crying. Someone had to be strong, and that day Sophia decided it would be her. "It was an accident," someone whispered behind her. "The truck's brakes failed on the hill. John didn't stand a chance." Sophia hugged Daniel tighter. Accident. Such a small word to describe the gigantic hole opening up in their lives. In the following months, the house on Acacia Street, number 247, transformed. Carmen worked 14 hours a day as a housekeeper in 3 different houses. She left at 5 in the morning, came back at 9 at night. Sometimes she didn't come back at all. She slept at work when her employer needed someone to watch her children overnight. Sophia became the mother her siblings didn't have. At 11, she woke up at 5:30 to make breakfast. Bread with oil when there was any, sometimes just coffee with sugar and crackers. She combed Laura's hair, tied David's shoes, checked if Daniel and Ryan had brushed their teeth. "Sophia, I don't want to go to school today," Daniel complained, stuffing notebooks into his torn backpack. "You're going." She adjusted his shirt collar. "Dad would want you to study." The mention of their father always worked. After taking her siblings to school, Sophia returned home. She cleaned. She cooked lentils. She washed clothes. In the afternoon, she picked up the little ones. The older ones arrived. She made dinner. And at night, when everyone was asleep, she sat down to do her own homework. It was on one of those nights that she discovered her gift. Her language arts teacher, Mrs. Thompson, had given them a text in Spanish to translate. Sophia looked at the foreign words, and something clicked. She didn't just understand the text. It was as if the words were speaking to her in a language she already knew. She translated it in 15 minutes. "Sophia, where did you learn Spanish?" the teacher asked her. "I didn't learn it, Mrs. Thompson. It's the first time I've seen it." Mrs. Thompson saw the talent, and although life demanded much, she gave her an outlet. She took her to the New York Public Library every Friday. While her siblings played in the children's section, Sophia devoured books in English, Spanish, French. At 13, she could read in 3 languages. At 14, it was 4. But life had other plans. When Sophia was 15, her mother had a mild heart attack. The doctor was clear she needed to rest. Less work, less stress. Sophia was 6 months away from finishing high school, but the electricity bill was unpaid, and there was no food for the week. At 16, 6 months before graduating, Sophia Miller dropped out of high school and took a job at a coffee shop. But at night, when everyone was asleep, she opened the library books. And she studied, alone, determined, invisible to the world's eyes, but brilliant in her own. Because Sophia knew that one day, that hidden talent would be her salvation. From 16 to 27, Sophia's life was a relentless routine, but in the invisibility of the silent early mornings, she built her secret empire of words. Her room, shared with Laura, became her nocturnal sanctuary for study. Her method was eclectic. Mrs. Thompson brought her second-hand books, outdated dictionaries, incomplete grammar books, novels in foreign languages. Sophia devoured everything: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Spanish and French. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Italian and Portuguese. Saturdays, German, Sundays, Arabic. Arabic was the hardest. There weren't many resources, so she improvised. She discovered the Islamic Cultural Center of New York on 96th Street. On Sunday mornings, after preparing lunch, she would take 2 buses there and sit on the benches across the street, listening to the conversations. At first it was just noise, but slowly the Arabic began to make sense. One day a Syrian man named Khalil noticed her. "You've been here every Sunday," he approached, curious. "Are you lost?" "I'm learning." Sophia showed him her notebook. Khalil looked at the slender young woman in simple clothes with a notebook full of attempts at Arabic script. "Why Arabic? It's one of the most difficult languages." Sophia smiled. "That's why." For the next 2 years, every Sunday, Khalil taught her. He shared his language with an American girl who, for some reason, was determined to learn it. At 24, Sophia was fluent in English, Spanish, and French, conversational in Italian and German, and surprisingly competent in Arabic. At 25, she lost her job. Her mother's health was worsening. She needed a better-paying job. She saw the ad, live-in housekeeper, family on the Upper East Side. Salary, $500 a month, Palsi's room and board. It meant leaving her mother alone with the kids during the week, but it also meant saving on rent and expenses. She could send almost her entire salary home. At 27, Sophia Miller moved into a penthouse on the Upper East Side. Beatrice Sterling, the owner, explained the rules with the precision of a military manual. Do not get involved in the family's affairs. You are here to work, not to be part of our lives. Is that clear? Perfectly, ma'am. And Beatrice was absolutely right. For the next 3 years, Sophia was treated like furniture. The Sterlings discussed million-dollar deals while she served coffee. John and Beatrice yelled at each other about their daughter Clara, about money, about affairs, and Sophia vacuumed 2 meters away, as if she were deaf. Mark Davis, the commercial director, mocked her. She didn't even finish high school, he would say. But Sophia kept studying. The Sterling's library had an international section that no one ever touched. She found a novel in Arabic. She read the whole thing in 6 months. No one noticed. Until that fateful morning when Mark Davis, with his dismissive smile, said, "Why don't we have Sophia translate for us?" And John Sterling, without knowing what he was doing, offered, "If she knows Arabic, you hand in your resignation and she takes over your position." Sophia heard him. And for the first time in 3 years, she allowed them to see beyond her invisibility. And the secret she had guarded for a decade was about to change everything. Faisal al-Rashid crossed the foyer of the Sterling penthouse with the posture of someone who commanded empires. At 56, he looked like a man forged in discipline, impeccable navy suit, geometric beard, and dark, analytical eyes that calculated the value of everything they saw. "Mr. Al-Rashid." John hurried down the stairs, hand extended and a smile that was too wide. "It's an honor to have you." Faisal shook his hand with polite firmness, but no warmth. He had come from Dubai specifically for this meeting. $15 million were at stake for the construction of 5 luxury resorts in the Hamptons. In the room, Mark was already seated. Clara, the Sterling's 18-year-old daughter, followed her father in, sitting in a corner to play on her phone. "Mr. Al-Rashid," John began, "before we start, I must inform you of an unforeseen event. The interpreter had an accident." Faisal's expression hardened. He closed the folder he was about to open. "I see. So you organize a crucial $15 million meeting, and you don't have a backup plan." John tried to save the situation. "We can proceed in English. Your command of the language is excellent." Faisal took a deep breath and responded in fluent, precise Arabic. No one in the room understood a word, except for Sophia, who was standing at the door with the coffee tray, absorbing every syllable. "I have just explained in my language why this situation is unacceptable," Faisal translated into English, his voice sharp. "I have just said that I consider this a lack of preparation that makes me question whether I should invest in a company that cannot properly organize a meeting." John's face went white. "You have 10 minutes, Faisal declared. 10 minutes to convince me in English. If not, I consider the negotiations terminated." It was then that Mark, nervous, made the mistake that would change his life. "Well," he said with a bitter smile, "perhaps our housekeeper can help. I'm sure she studied interpretation at some prestigious university." Faisal turned his head in the direction Mark indicated, and he saw her. He really saw her. He noticed her upright posture, her steady hands, and above all the way she returned his gaze. It was not the submissive look of an employee. It was the look of someone who had understood every word he had said in Arabic. "You," Faisal said in English, approaching Sophia, "did you understand what I said?" Sophia carefully placed the tray on the table, and she responded, in perfect, clear Arabic, "Sayyid al-Rashid, fahimtu kul ma qultahu, wa ataqid annan astatha'u al-musa'ada." "Mr. Al-Rashid, I understood every word you said, and I believe I can help." The silence that followed was deafening. Faisal blinked, incredulous. John's mouth hung open. Mark looked as if he'd seen a ghost. Faisal tested her, continuing in Arabic. "You speak Arabic?" "Na'am sayyidas. Dirasat datiyah mundu sab'a sanawat." "Yes, sir. Self-taught for 7 years." Faisal's astonishment turned to fascination. "Your housekeeper," he said in English to John, "has just told me in impeccable formal Arabic that she learned the language on her own by studying at night for 7 years. "That's impossible," Mark exclaimed. "She didn't even finish high school." Faisal shot him a withering look. "This is your commercial director? The man who insults someone for her formal education while she demonstrates more knowledge than he could dream of? He turned to Sophia. Please sit down and tell me your story. Sophia, encouraged by a dazed nod from John, sat. She told them her life story, her father's death, dropping out of school, the late nights with books. Faisal listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stood up. Mr. Sterling, I have a modified proposal. My meeting will continue, but with one condition. Sophia will be our interpreter. And afterward, I want to talk to her about a position in my company. I'm looking for cultural relations managers. Someone who understands not just languages, but people. Mark turned pale. Wait a minute, she's our employee. A housekeeping contract, Faisal replied. I'm sure it can be terminated. John, Mark yelled. You can't allow this. John looked at Sophia, and he remembered the bet. Mark, do you remember what I said? If Sophia knew Arabic, you'd hand in your resignation, and she'd take your position. It was a joke. Not to me. Mark Davis, you're fired. Sophia, you are the new commercial director of this company. Chaos erupted in the room. Beatrice entered, drawn by the noise. John, what is going on? A revolution, my dear. A much-needed revolution. Sophia, her hands trembling under the table, maintained her composure. Mr. Sterling, she said, her voice surprisingly firm, before I accept, I need to know, is this because you finally see my value, or because you're desperate not to lose this meeting? The question hung in the air, a direct challenge. John looked at her, and for the first time in years, a genuine smile appeared on his face. Both, he admitted, but mostly the first. You've been in my house for 3 years, Sophia, and I've never seen you. That was my failure, not yours. Faisal applauded slowly. Excellent. Now, if you don't mind, shall we begin? I have $15 million to discuss. And so, on an August morning, Sophia Miller ceased to be invisible. The meeting that would change her life was about to begin. The meeting lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. To Sophia, it felt simultaneously like 4 minutes and 4 days. Faisal spared no technical details. He spoke in Arabic, fast and precise, using construction and hospitality terminology that Sophia had never encountered in books. But she had something no professional interpreter would have. 3 years of observing John and Mark discuss business. She understood the context. Ma hiya al-damanat al-muqaddamah li jawdat al-bina. What are the guarantees for the quality of construction? Faisal asked. Sophia translated fluently for John, who began to answer in English. She translated back into Arabic, maintaining not just the words but the tone and intention. Clara watched from her corner, mouth agape. Beatrice had sat down in stunned silence. Mark had stormed out of the room 30 minutes earlier, slamming the door. Faisal was visibly impressed, not just with the information but with Sophia's precision. Hal ladaika khibra fa'al tarjama al-mutakhassisa. Do you have experience in specialized translation? He asked her directly. Sophia smiled slightly. La lakinan ladaya khibra fa'al istima. No, but I have experience in listening. When the meeting ended, all the papers were signed. $15 million, 5 resorts. Sterling Construction and Associates had just closed the biggest deal in its history. Faisal turned to John. This contract was only possible because of Sophia's presence today. Then he retired to the library with Sophia. Your story has deeply moved me, he told her in English, because it is my story too. I came from Lebanon at 26 with $3,000. I didn't speak English. I was a dishwasher, a cleaner, a construction worker, but I studied. Every day, people saw the cleaner, not the entrepreneur. How did you bear it? Sophia asked, being invisible for so long. Because I knew I wasn't invisible. They just didn't see me. And there is power in that, Sophia. Power in observing without being observed. He offered her a position as a cultural relations manager in his company in Dubai, with a salary of $6,000 a month. She hesitated, mentioning John's recent promotion. My offer will remain open, Faisal said. No pressure. Back in the room, Clara approached her. Sophia, I never knew. You had no reason to know. I saw you every day, and I never really saw you. That makes me a horrible person, doesn't it? It makes you human. And young. There's still time to learn to look better. Beatrice also approached, seeming smaller, more fragile. Sophia, I don't know what to say. I've treated you like an employee, because that's what I was. Sophia's voice was neutral. I'm not angry, Mrs. Sterling, but I hope in the future when you hire someone you remember that everyone has a story. John hung up the phone and came over. Sophia, we need to discuss your new contract. Commercial director. Salary of $5,000 a month to start. Full benefits. And you deserve to have your own life. I accept, John. John shook her hand, and for the first time, it was a handshake between equals. When Faisal left, Sophia stood alone for a moment. She looked out the window at the Upper East Side. Across the city was the Bronx, her mother, her siblings. She picked up her phone and called. "Mom?" Her voice broke for the first time. "Mom, I have to tell you something." And as she told her, as she heard Carmen cry with joy, Sophia finally let her own tears fall. The woman who had been invisible for 11 years was finally being seen. The following Monday, Sophia walked into the Sterling Construction Office building on Park Avenue. She wore a professional suit she had bought on Saturday. The receptionist nearly spilled her coffee. "Sophia, why are you dressed like that?" "Good morning, Julia. I'm the new commercial director." Mark's old office was now hers. On the desk, a pile of folders and a sarcastic note. "Good luck with this mess. You'll need it." MD. John came in. First day, 15 ongoing contracts, 3 urgent renegotiations, 2 clients threatening to sue, and one, he pointed to a red folder, is a nightmare. It was a contract with New York City Hall for a cultural center. The deadline had passed. Fines were accumulating. Mark kept promising to resolve it and never did, John explained. Now the city wants to cancel and sue us for $2 million. Sophia read the document. There were delays from the construction company, but also from permits that were the city's responsibility. "There's room to negotiate," she said. She called the urban planning commissioner, a man known for being difficult. "Commissioner, this is Sophia Miller, the new commercial director at Sterling. I'd like to meet to discuss the project." "There's nothing to discuss. The contract will be cancelled. I understand your frustration, but before cancelling, wouldn't it be prudent to evaluate our mutual responsibilities? The documents show that 4 permits were approved 3 months late by the city." There was a silence. Then, "Wednesday, 10 a.m., my office." John smiled. "Mark never got him to agree to a meeting." "Mark probably treated him like an enemy," Sophia said. "I'm treating him like a partner with a shared problem." During that first week, Sophia worked 14 hours a day. At the Wednesday meeting, she was honest. "We have failed. We admit it. But we weren't the only ones. I propose a solution. We finish in 4 months, absorbing part of the fines if the city officially renegotiates the deadline." The commissioner studied the numbers and agreed. On Friday, John called her into his office. "Mark worked here for 8 years. In 5 days, you've achieved what he never could, getting people to trust us again. Maybe because I understand what it's like not to be trusted. When you live that, you learn to treat others differently. Sophia, I'm sorry for these 3 years, for not having seen. You've already apologized, John, and thank you for finally looking." That night in the Bronx, her family welcomed her with a party. Meat, fresh fruit, everything she had bought with her first paycheck. She told them everything. "Your father," Carmen said, crying, "would be so proud." Sophia cried too, because her father wasn't there to see it. "Mum, you're not going to work anymore. I'll take care of things now." "Sophia, you can't." "I can, and I will. You've spent 15 years taking care of us. Now it's my turn." Later in the kitchen, she looked at the Formica table where she had studied so many nights. In 1 week, her life had completely changed. But she knew this was just the beginning. 3 months later, an air of celebration reigned in the Sterling Construction Office. The contract with Faisal was progressing perfectly. Sophia had proven herself not just competent, but exceptional. But there was something no one knew. Every night in her apartment, Sophia was working on a secret project. One night, Clara Sterling showed up at her door unannounced. The 18-year-old seemed different, more natural, less superficial. "My parents are getting a divorce," she said bluntly. "My mom found out my dad had an affair. I'm sorry, Clara. Don't be. They were never happy. I'm telling you this because you're the only real person I know. For 3 years, you cleaned my room, and I never even asked for your last name. When you revealed you spoke 6 languages, something broke inside me. I realized I've spent 18 years surrounded by empty people, including myself. I want to do something that matters, but I don't know how." Sophia showed her the study journal from when she was 16. "Look what I wrote here. I don't know if languages will ever be useful, but I know they make me happy, and maybe happiness is reason enough. You're 18, you don't need to know who you are. You just need to start finding out." She told her about her secret, a project called Language Bridges, a free foreign language teaching program for people from neighborhoods like the Bronx. "That's incredible," Clara said. But how will you do it? The public library where I used to study is letting me use a space, and I'm saving for materials. Can I help? Clara blurted out. I'm fluent in Spanish. I want to have a purpose like yours. They started planning together. Language Bridges would launch in January, but in mid-December, John called Sophia into his office. I heard about your project. John, I can explain. It doesn't interfere with my work. I'm not worried about that. He smiled. I'm interested. Tell me about it. When Sophia finished explaining her vision, John was thoughtful. What if Sterling Construction officially sponsors it? We'll cover the costs, provide a better space, and you can dedicate 5 hours a week of your work schedule to it as the company's social responsibility project. He handed her a check for $10,000. To start. That night, Sophia showed the check to Clara. They screamed and hugged, but the best was yet to come. Faisal al-Rashid heard about it and called Sophia. Ahabu an akuna juz'an min hada. I would like to be a part of this. He offered not only money but his own time. Once a month he would give a talk on entrepreneurship. A Lebanese millionaire entrepreneur, a former housekeeper, and a rich girl discovering her purpose, united to build bridges where before there were only chasms, but an unexpected call was about to test everything they had built. The launch of Language Bridges was scheduled for the second week of January. 60 people had signed up. Sophia was thrilled. 3 days before, her phone rang. Unknown number. Sophia? It's me, Mark. Sophia's stomach lurched. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need to see you. Please. I have information you need to know. They met at a coffee shop. Mark looked different, tired. He had lost weight. I was an idiot, he said without preamble. I treated you and everyone I considered beneath me like garbage. And when you surpassed me, my world fell apart. I've been in therapy, understanding why I was so cruel. That doesn't justify how you treated me. It doesn't justify it, but it explains it. And that's why I need to apologize. She was surprised. What are you doing now? I'm teaching math at a public high school in Queens. I make a third of what I used to, and I'm happier. He told her the real reason for his call. There's a rumor in the market about Sterling Construction. A competitor is saying the deal with Faisal was secured illicitly, that the whole story was fabricated to move the client. That's absurd. I know, but rumors don't have to be true to do damage. It's Matthew Ford, from Horizon Construction. He wanted that contract desperately. Why are you telling me this? Because ironically you're the most honest person I've ever met, and you don't deserve to have your name smeared. Be careful. Ford is dangerous. That afternoon, Sophia met with John. Matthew Ford. John paled. That man is a snake. He could ruin our reputation, especially yours. They decided to get ahead of it, to tell Sophia's story before Ford could distort it. On Monday, the eve of the launch, the New York Times published a full-page feature, From Housekeeper to Executive, the story of Sophia Miller, the woman who mastered 6 languages on her own. The story included testimonials from her mother, Mrs. Thompson, Khalil, and Faisal. On Tuesday, a video Clara made went viral, 3 million views. On Wednesday, at the launch, 200 people showed up. They had to use the library's outdoor garden. I'm not special, Sophia told the crowd. I just had determination, and I want you to know that if I could do it, you can too. The applause was deafening, but in the crowd, someone was watching with rage. Matthew Ford. He approached her afterward. Nice show. But this whole story of yours sounds a little too convenient. Skepticism is your right. Spreading lies is not. They're not lies if they're true. I'm still going to find out. And when I do, you and John Sterling will regret it. He left, and Sophia felt a chill. The war had just begun. February arrived with palpable tension. Matthew Ford made good on his threat. A surprise audit from the IRS. A former client suing over a defect in a project from 5 years ago. And rumors in business circles. Sterling Construction hires unqualified people. An anonymous blog published an article. The danger of hiring for pity instead of competence. It didn't mention Sophia by name, but the allusions were obvious. It's defamation, Sophia told John, but we can't prove it's him. So what do we do? What are his weak points? Sophia asked. No one fights in the shadows if they can fight in the light. For the next 48 hours, Sophia thoroughly investigated Horizon Construction. Clara helped her. Faisal provided confidential information, and she found what she was looking for. 3 of Horizon's projects had been halted due to environmental issues in the last 2 years. A 4th was under investigation for using low-quality materials. The pattern was clear. Ford won contracts with impossible prices, and then cut corners illegally. Sophia called a meeting at the Builders Association, of which they were both members. Ford arrived confidently. His smile faded when he saw Sophia presiding at the table. "What is this?" "A mediation," said the association president, "at the request of Sterling Construction for defamation and unfair competition." Ford laughed. "I can't prove anything. I don't need to." Sophia opened a folder. "I just need to show that you have a history of unethical behavior." She listed the halted projects, the fraudulent materials, the environmental fines, documents, photos, official reports, all public record, all devastating. The color drained from Ford's face. "This has nothing to do with—" "It has everything to do with it. You attack my reputation because you lost a contract, but your real reputation is far worse than any lie you try to spread about me." She turned on her laptop. On the screen, security footage from a coffee shop. In it, Ford was seen talking to the journalist from the defamatory blog. "How did you—" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that I have it. And if you continue, I will make this public. Or you can stop. Immediately." The silence was absolute. Ford knew he had lost. "Fine," he said through gritted teeth. "We'll stop. That's not enough. I want a public retraction. You're asking for too much. I'm asking for what's fair." 3 days later, the same blog published a retraction disavowing the rumors. John called her. "How the hell did you do it?" "I showed him he had more to lose than I did. You know, I hired you because you knew Arabic, but I've realized something. You're not valuable for the languages. You're valuable because you understand people, their fears, their motivations." He offered her a new position, Special Director of International Relations, reporting directly to him and Faisal, with a salary of $7,500 a month. She accepted. That night in the Bronx, her mother said, "Your father is watching, Sophia. Wherever he is, he's watching and he's smiling." And Sophia felt she had finally honored his memory, not just by surviving, but by thriving. March dressed New York in golden leaves. Faisal's resorts were progressing perfectly. Sophia, now 31, seemed like a completely different person. One Thursday, Faisal invited her to meet at an Arabic restaurant. "I have a proposal," he said. "I'm opening an office in Dubai. My base for expansion in the Middle East, a $300 million investment. I want you to be the Director of International Operations, based in Dubai. Salary of $20,000 a month plus benefits." The silence filled with impossible possibilities. Dubai, the other side of the world. "Give me a month to think about it," she said. She didn't sleep that night. On Saturday, she gathered her family. $20,000 a month? Sophia, that's impossible to turn down, Daniel said. "But it's so far away," Laura said. Carmen, her mother, remained quiet. "Mom, what do you think? I remember when you dropped out of high school at 16. I cried all night, because I knew I was stealing your future to save our present. I've lived with that guilt for 15 years, but you never gave up. And now someone is offering you the entire world. But what about you guys? We'll be fine. You've already done more for us than any daughter could. For the first time in your life, choose what you want, not what we need." The answer came during one of her classes at Language Bridges. "Sophia, did you ever think about giving up?" a student asked. "Every single day," she admitted. "But I didn't. You know why? Because I was afraid to look back in 20 years and ask myself, what if I had tried?" She had given herself the answer. At the end of the class, she called Faisal. "Karartu, sa'atakalam bil-kubul." "I have decided. I accept." The farewell was tough. John was sad, but he understood. Clara cried and made her promise to visit. The students threw her a party. Before leaving, she met with Mark. "I came to thank you for warning me about Ford. Where are you going now?" "To Dubai, to work with Faisal." He whistled. "From the Bronx to Dubai, what a story." "A story that began with someone humiliating me," Sophia smiled. "It's funny how things work out. More than funny, poetic. Thank you, Sophia, for waking me up." At the airport, her family saw her off with tears and hugs. Clara held a sign, "The world's best teacher is going to see the world." She looked back one last time. Her past was waving goodbye, but ahead was Dubai, the future. Everything she had built with sweat and early mornings, she waved back, and she moved forward. Because that's what Sophia Miller did. She moved forward. Dubai was an explosion of energy, a metropolis born from the desert. The first night in her luxurious apartment in the marina, Sophia wept. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming reality of her journey, from the Bronx to Dubai. The work was intense. Her first task, Negotiate a $22 million contract with an Egyptian hotel group. She secured it. Do you know why you succeeded? Faisal asked her. Because I understood what they really wanted. Exactly. Business isn't just about numbers. It's about people. The following months were a whirlwind of travel. Cairo, Beirut, Amman, Riyadh. But she called home every day. And Clara told her about the progress of language bridges. We have branches in 4 boroughs, 700 students. And Lucas, you remember him, he got a scholarship to study translation at university. In July, Faisal proposed a new challenge: expand language bridges to Dubai. There are thousands of immigrant workers here who don't speak English well. Filipinos, Indians, Pakistanis. They can't advance because of the language barrier. I want it to be a partnership with language bridges in the States, Sophia conditioned. The project launched in September. 500 signed up the first week. Sophia taught Spanish classes twice a week. 3 months later, one of her students, Rajesh, an Indian construction worker, was promoted to supervisor. His salary doubled. He cried as he told Sophia, and she understood. It wasn't about her. It was about opening doors. In December, she returned to the US for the holidays. The house in the Bronx seemed smaller, but her mother's hug was the same as always, tight and safe. You've changed, Carmen told her. You're more confident. I'm more myself, finally. She visited the original language bridges. It now had its own headquarters, donated by the city. 1,200 students. Lucas was now a volunteer monitor. On New Year's Eve, in the new middle-class house she had bought for her family, her mother made a toast. To my daughter, who transformed pain into determination, invisibility into impact, and to John, who is not here, but whose sacrifice made it all possible. Sophia returned to Dubai in January, her heart full, but something was about to happen. Something that would force her to choose between loyalty and principles, between what was easy and what was right, and Sophia, as always, would choose the harder path, because that's how you build real bridges. In February 2026, Faisal called her into an emergency meeting. His face was tense. We have a problem, a big one. He showed her the contracts for a resort project in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, a $60 million investment. Our Saudi partner, Sheikh Abdulaziz, is involved in abusive labor practices. The reports were chilling. Migrant workers in inhuman conditions, passports confiscated, wages withheld. Cancel the contract. Immediately, Faisal said. But Abdulaziz is very influential. If we cancel, he could veto us from all future projects in Saudi Arabia. We'd lose access to a multi-billion-dollar market. What if we negotiate? Sophia suggested. Demand that he corrects the practices. I've tried, he refuses. The choice was clear. Be complicit in abuse or lose billions. Faisal, Sophia said, money has no memory. People do. If we cancel, we lose money. If we continue, we lose our integrity. And once you compromise that, no amount of money in the world can buy it back. Faisal smiled slowly. You know this could cost us hundreds of millions in the long run. I know. But some bridges should not be built. They cancelled the contract. The fallout was brutal. Abdulaziz launched a smear campaign. 3 other projects in the region were cancelled by concerned partners. $70 million in contracts evaporated. Faisal's team panicked. It was in a tense meeting that Sophia spoke up. Stop. Her voice cut through the chaos. If we back down now, we become the kind of company we swore we'd never be. The kind that puts profit before people. They decided to counterattack with transparency. They published a statement explaining their values and why they had cancelled the contract. The reaction was unexpected. The statement was shared 50,000 times. Human rights organizations praised them, and new contracts emerged from companies that wanted to partner with their integrity. A week later, CNN International interviewed Sophia. Many would say you've lost $70 million for naive idealism. What's your response? I respond that $70 million can't buy my ability to look at myself in the mirror, and if that's naivety, I'd rather be naive than complicit. The interview went viral. In 3 months, they not only recovered their losses but surpassed them by 120 million. International pressure forced the Saudi government to investigate Abdulaziz, who was fined and forced to reform his practices. Rajesh, her former student, called her crying. His cousin, who worked for Abdulaziz, had gotten his passport and back pay. You've saved hundreds of people, Miss Sophia. Thank you for caring about people like us. That night, on her balcony, Sophia looked at the lights of Dubai. Faisal joined her. Laqad atabti annaki lasat mujarrad mutarjima. You have proven you are more than just a translator. Bal ana baniat jusur. I am a builder of bridges. It was true, but the most important bridge she would build was yet to come, because in 2 weeks she would receive a call from the United States, a call that would bring her back home. In March 2026, the call came. It was Daniel. Sophia, it's Mom. She collapsed. We're at the hospital. Sophia caught the first flight out. 18 hours that felt like 18 years. Carmen had suffered another more severe heart attack. She needed cardiac surgery with a 50% chance of survival. My daughter, Carmen said when she woke up, your father made me promise something before he died. He said, our Sophia is special. Don't let the world dim her light. I tried, Sophia, but I didn't know how. You did everything you could, Mom. No, it was you who did it. You've honored your father in every way possible. The surgery lasted 8 agonizing hours, but it was a success. Slowly, miraculously, Carmen recovered, and Sophia made a decision. She called Faisal. I need to stay in the States. Family comes first, he replied. Work from New York. Come to Dubai once a month. We'll maintain your salary and benefits. This is a bridge between work and family. We'll build it together. Sophia returned to New York, and she returned to teaching at Language Bridges. The project had exploded. Branches in 12 American cities, 3,500 students. Lucas, her former student, was now a volunteer coordinator. In August, she gave a talk at Columbia University. The auditorium was packed. 10 years ago, I was a housekeeper, invisible. Today, I direct international operations for a multi-billion-dollar company. She paused. I didn't do it alone. I had mentors. I had a family. My message isn't be independent. It's build your network. Help. Ask for help. We are stronger together. In October, Language Bridges celebrated its 2nd anniversary. Her mother, now recovered, cut the cake. At the end of the night, Sophia stood alone in the library where it all began. She picked up an Arabic dictionary, the same one she had used years ago. On the first page was a note she had written at 17. If one day all of this makes sense, I will come back here to say thank you. She took a pen and wrote underneath, I'm back, and thank you is not enough, but it's all I have. Her phone rang. It was the Secretary of Education's office. We want to nationalize Language Bridges, make it public policy, expand it to every public library in the country, with you as the lead advisor. 500,000 people, 500,000 Sophias, Lucases, Rajeshes, 500,000 invisible people being seen. When can I start? She asked, her voice thick with emotion. Immediately. Sophia realized something fundamental. She hadn't just built bridges between languages. She had built bridges between worlds, between the Bronx and the Upper East Side, between New York and Dubai, between a past of pain and a future of possibilities. The bridge between who she had been and who she had become was unbreakable because it was built with the strongest material that exists, human determination. The true legacy is not building something that depends on you, but something that grows without you.